the conditions in Gaza is getting more catastrophic than before. We are now seeing children are starving.
אני כן יריב עזתים, כן וכן, זה החובה שלנו. החובה שלנו להגלות את העזתים.
אתה חבר כנסת בפרלמנט הישראלי אומר, אני כן מעוניין להריב עזתים, אז אם אתה מבין את ההשלכות של האמירה הזאת.
אני מסביר לך, הן פשוטות. אני מעוניין להריב את העזתים, לעשות מצור על מלא מלא.
That man that you just heard say that Gazans need to be starved is actually an Israeli Knesset member by the name of Moshe Sada, admitting again on Israeli television that starvation isn't just, a side effect of this war on Gaza. It's part of the goal, it's part of the Israeli government and the IDF's strategy. And sadly, he is far from the only member of the Israeli parliament who sees starvation as a tool for punishing and driving civilians out of Gaza, which of course is considered a war crime. It violates international laws. Now, the Israeli blockade of Gaza is now in its third month, and I mean blockade of humanitarian aid entering the Gaza Strip. This began in early March. No food, water, or medication has been allowed into the territory, Cenk.
Yeah, so that guy you just saw is a bona fide fascist, and he is very similar to the Nazis. So I hope I'm being clear enough with what some members of the Israeli government are up to. And don't tell me that you're offended by that if you support a guy who says, let's starve children to death. That is Nazi 101. So, and if you say, no, it's okay because they're not Israeli children, so we can starve them to death, their lives don't count. That's Nazi 101, okay? So, and I wish he was alone, and I wish he was a lone madman in the Israeli government, and we could give you the context and say, no, don't worry, it's not like the Israeli government actually voted to do that policy. But we can't tell you that because the Israeli government did vote to do that policy. And there are tons of voices, as Anna's about to explain to you, inside the Israeli government, literally saying, yeah, of course we should starve their children to death. And in fact, and this is the most amazing part of the story, they think that it is immoral not to starve the children.
Yeah, do you remember in the beginning of the current war on Gaza, there was that big debate about whether the IDF had bombed a hospital?
And they're like, oh my God.
We would never do that.
The IDF is a moral army. We would never bomb a hospital. Every hospital in Gaza is obliterated. And now they are actively saying out loud in public and in internal debates about how they would like to murder Palestinian children.
With our money.
Yeah, and of course they won't ever do it with their own money. They need our money to not give the Palestinians food. Okay, so now if you're still defending this particular Israeli government, you really, really need to go and clarify your morality because you don't have any.
Yep.
Okay,
I totally
there is
agree.
no excuse for this at all, at all. But again, the bias is so deep that those Knesset members and cabinet members, they really believe that it's immoral not to murder these people.
I mean, it is a case study in dehumanization because they have so effectively dehumanized Palestinians, including literal babies, literal children, that they loudly and proudly declare that they are intentionally starving them to death. So let's get to those details. Let's get to all the different Knesset members who have weighed in on this. Now, Haaretz has reported that last week the Knesset held a first of its kind discussion on the humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip. But I want to be clear, they weren't holding this hearing in order to do something to help Palestinians who are suffering as a result of this humanitarian crisis. They're more worried about the public relations fallout from what the Israeli government and the IDF is doing. They're worried about the PR, so that's why they're holding this hearing. Now, during the meeting, Dr. Sharon Shaul, who is from NATAN, an Israeli-based organization that provides humanitarian aid around the world, remarked, quote, I think that even everyone sitting around this table doesn't want a suffering child to be unable to receive painkillers or minimal medical treatment. And to her surprise, that actually ended up setting off a firestorm during this hearing. Her assumption that nobody wanted Gazan children to starve apparently was incorrect. So Israeli lawmaker Amit Halevi from Netanyahu's Likud party angrily interrupted her to say this, quote, "I'm not sure you're speaking for us when you say we want to treat every child and every woman. I hope you don't stand behind that statement either. When fighting a group like this, the distinctions that exist in a normal world don't exist."
No, Amit, they do exist. It's just that you're a monster.
Yep.
And you'd like to be like the Nazis and murder children. That moral distinction exists for the rest of us who are not Nazis like you, okay?
And so Saul.
So look, hold on one second. I want to be clear. Dr. Sharon Shaul is the head of the medical sector at NATAN Worldwide Disaster Relief, and she's a wonderful person. She's an Israeli, and she's saying, can we please get them medical attention? Because I would hope none of us would be for children starving to death or not being able to deal with pain, and Anna's got more details in a second for you. So good person. The rest of them attack her. They're like, how dare you? It is immoral to not want to cause these children pain. Okay, well, monsters defined. There is no excuse for it at all. And if you're trying to make excuses for it, okay, and now we know what you would have done in the 1930s.
Yeah, look, Amit's thinking is barbaric thinking, okay? It's the way a barbarian would think. And so in the beginning of this war, when Netanyahu tried to frame this situation as a war between civilization and barbarians, really, you're gonna claim that you guys are the ones representing civilization, fighting against barbaric actions? And what Hamas did on October 7th, to be sure, was barbaric. But what does it say of the Israeli government when their response is 1,000 times more barbaric?
Yeah.
Killed far more civilians than Hamas did on October 7th.
Imagine if Hamas said, well, of course we should starve all Israeli children to death. They were occupying us, they deserved it, and they were hiding behind the human shields of Israeli babies, so we starved them all to death. We would all rightfully say they are the worst monsters in the world.
Right.
Now, Israeli government officials are saying it and saying it's immoral if you don't starve them. So let's give you the horrific details of what these Nazis said.
So Shaul responded to that statement by saying, I hope that you too don't want a 4-year-old whose arm has been amputated to go without painkillers. I hope you have that empathy too. Then lawmaker Lamor Son Har Malik decided to jump in. This individual is from the Religious Zionism Party, and they say that the only treatment needed here is for you. Okay.
So now threatening your own, threatening Israelis. Oh, you dare to be a decent person, Dr. Sharon Shaul?
You need treatment.
Yeah,
there's something wrong with you. Another participant remarked, my God, this is so sick. You are the sickest doctor I've ever seen.
Well, how many Nazi doctors do you know? Do you know Dr. Mengele and his descendants or something? And I mean, do all the doctors you know think that you should starve children to death? Jesus, what kind of Nazi doctor hospital are you familiar with? Because guys, Haaretz is reporting this. It's an Israeli paper. There's plenty of perfectly good things in Israel. Their freedom of press within Israel's fine. They murder all the journalists in Gaza. That's a different situation, right? There's good people like Dr. Sharon Shaul. Sometimes their courts do the right thing, sometimes, etc. So, but what we're seeing is something shocking that we have never seen before, where government officials in an allied country, a country we fund, are actively saying we should murder children, and if you're a doctor and you don't support us inflicting pain on children, starving children, and murdering children, you're not a good doctor.
Sadly, it didn't end there. Now, someone who was there at the time of this hearing by the name of Yazar Lifshitz, whose son was an Israeli man who was kidnapped and murdered by Hamas. You can look. I find the quote that I'm about to read absolutely deplorable, but I also understand that when Hamas kills a family member of yours, you're going to want to retaliate in incredibly cruel, unfair ways toward people who didn't even do anything wrong, right? And so, with that in mind, this is what Lifshitz said. Although there are almost no innocents in Gaza, any moral person can understand that starving children is not something we can be proud of. This is a person whose own family member was killed by Hamas and is able to see things way more clearly than the scum in the current Israeli parliament. And I mean it when I say scum. Not all of them, but the ones who are openly saying that they're in favor of starving defenseless children to death, they're scum. They're scum, and we're funding them.
Is this gonna be a point of contention in America now? Do we have to debate this on cable news? Well, if I say, hey, maybe you shouldn't starve the Palestinian children to death, will I be called an anti-Semite? And the answer, you know what the answer is. Yeah, they will debate it. And yes, we will be called anti-Semitic. They'll say, blood libel, blood libel. You're saying that the Jews, because it's a Jewish state, are murdering children. No, I'm not saying it. Their government officials are saying it. And they're saying that if you don't murder children, you're immoral. I've never seen anything like it. And I can't, I've said it a million times, I'll say it another million. It's not all Israelis. You see the other Israelis, and I agree with Anna, if Hamas killed your son, you get to be super enraged by it, and I don't call you any of those names because you're in a different category. You're understandably super upset about something terrible that happened to you, right? Yeah. The others seem to relish killing these children. And it's not because they're Jewish or Israel's a Jewish state, because power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. We in the United States have enabled this by saying every time Israel did a massive war crime as something despicable, we said, thank you very much, here's a new blank check, murder as many people as you like, just absolutely oppress the Palestinians and treat them like they're non-humans and kill as many of their children as you can. Thank you, sir, here's another blank check. That's how the American government caused this catastrophe. And Israel wouldn't be in this shape, and their government officials wouldn't be this monstrous if we didn't continue to give them a blank check after every terrible thing that they have ever done.
Let me read you the rest of his comment. He says, there's a line we need to make sure we don't cross. Seeing mothers with dead children in their arms, is that what will bring back our hostages? Our strength also lies in the justice of our path. I just want to say Lifshitz is absolutely right, and I commend Lifshitz for having this view. This is the humane view, okay? But unfortunately, there are so many members of the current Israeli parliament who don't agree with him. So Har Malik, the lawmaker from the religious Zionism party, scolded him in response, though, saying, it's terrible that you even bring that up. It's terrible, awful, and horrific that you're talking about starvation when our children were butchered so cruelly. What do you think is happening to the Palestinian children? The Palestinian children aren't being butchered right now by your government, by your military. That's exactly what's happening right now as we speak. And on top of that, as they're being butchered, as innocent civilians are being butchered, the Israeli government is blocking humanitarian aid to ensure that either they die suffering in unbearable, unspeakable pain, or that they die without any chance of keeping them alive, helping them survive through medical intervention. It's disgusting, and they think they're the moral ones. Yeah, that's the amazing part about all of this.
Yeah, and he's yelling at again, the family member of someone who was killed by Hamas, as if they don't have. And I don't agree with everything that Lifshitz said. I don't agree that there's no innocence in Gaza, but I get that they are upset about the situation. But even so, they say, well, what are we gonna do? Be the monsters that we think we're fighting? And the cabinet members go, absolutely. We should be those monsters. We should be way worse than their monsters. They killed 36 of our children, and we've only killed about 20,000 of theirs. Why, we should starve them all to death, all the little babies. You see how they're the monsters? No, brother, I see how you're a monster. So I see how both sides, by the way, 36 kids, terrible. We've said it a billion times, terrible, right? If you think 36 kids dying by Hamas is terrible, but you don't think 15 to 20,000 children already dead, let alone the starvation that's happening now, if you don't think that's terrible, you're basically saying, I'm a racist, bigot, fascist, and in this case, you have earned that title. And you say, oh yeah, my babies are relevant, your babies are trash, and I plan on murdering them. That's exactly what a Nazi would say.
So there is a rabbi who's been vocal in pushing back against this idea that it's totally fine to starve civilian children to death. And his name is Rick Jacobs. He penned an op-ed for the Washington Post titled, "I'm a Rabbi, Starving Gaza is Immoral." And so he called Israel's assault on Gaza a just war, but condemned the blockade of food and humanitarian aid into the region, saying that starving Gazan civilians neither will bring Israel the total victory over Hamas it seeks, nor can be justified by Jewish values or humanitarian law. Will this policy bring home the 59 remaining hostages, including the 24 who are still alive? It's unlikely, and contrary to the wishes of almost 70% of Israelis who, in a recent poll, prioritized the hostages' return over that elusive total victory. Further, he writes that Hamas is willing to sacrifice thousands of Palestinians by hoarding humanitarian aid. Israel must not. Depriving Gazans of food and water will not make Israel safer or hasten the return of the hostages. Each of us who loves Israel must say so and urge Israel to change this policy. So I wouldn't be surprised if this rabbi is currently being attacked by members of the Israeli parliament.
Okay, I want to be clear about who he is. He's not just a regular old rabbi. He's the president of the Union for Reform Judaism, which is the largest denomination for Jewish Americans. So he is representing Jewish Americans more than probably anyone is, because that's the largest denomination. And he's saying, enough, don't. So yeah, I don't agree with him that it's a just war, but of course he's gonna say that, right? And so you wanna have nuance about your positions on Israel, God bless, man. I'll take nuance, I'll take disagreements around the edges, maybe even some core issues, right? But if you cross the Rubicon and you say, yeah, let's starve their children to death, there's no discussion with a Nazi. And so, like, that's because that's literal, Let's murder their children is not a thing that you can compromise. Let's compromise, murder half the children? No, but Rick Jacobs is not doing that. Rick Jacobs is doing something really moral, outstanding, and absolutely necessary. He's basically saying, without saying the words, not in our name. And thank you, Rabbi Jacobs, for saying that. I appreciate it, we all appreciate it. Everyone should rally around Rabbi Jacobs, okay? And say enough, because you're driving up anti-Semitism through the roof, okay? And don't tell me, oh, they hated us anyway. No, you fill in the blank, Turks, Poles, Jamaicans, it doesn't matter. If the whole world sees that group starving children to death, they're all gonna hate you. Why? Because of what you're doing.
Right.
Wake up, listen to Rabbi Jacobs, please wake up. Because if we here in America, especially, rabbis, instead of moral leaders, don't come forward and say, this is wrong, and we need to stop enabling Israel, then we're never going to stop this. If you keep sending the checks, they're gonna think, oh, we did a great job. America thinks we did a wonderful job. It just sent us a $20 billion gift for our war crimes. It sent us an $8 billion gift, a $4 billion gift. America won't stop giving us gifts for this genocide and ethnic cleansing. Let's do more of it. That's the message we're sending here in America. And we all have to unite to make sure we do not send that message, not in our name. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.